They were actually supposed to have jailed Nnamdi Kanu on November 10th. But they realized at the last minute that it was Ken Saro-Wiwa's same day that they killed Ken Saro-Wiwa. Second, the sentence was supposed to be a death sentence. But because they could not get, the support they needed to carry it out, they decided to make it life. I'm not sure as of the time he went for a break to come and read the judgment, was still what he had in his hand was a judgment for death sentence. If you see the passion with which he was reading the allegations against Nnamdi Kanu, one, the laborious and tedious way it was going on, he didn't write the judgment. You could tell. You could tell from his demeanor and his action that this was too much. A lot of mistakes. He couldn't mention his name. He says everything properly. And secondly, when he went back, they had to have another meeting with him. He said, look, I don't think we can carry out a death sentence. And that was why they settled for life. And then they imprisoned him, they settled for life, and took him to Sokoto the next day. They spent $10 million to go and bring Nnamdi Kanu from Kenya for this their sham trial. If you spend $50,000, you'll be able to get Toji. If you put $50,000 on the ground in Zamfara or Sokoto and say, I want to get Toji, I'm sure there are enough hunters with that money who will go and fish him out. But they are not interested because they are partners in crime, in the business of terrorism. Because the number one organization in this country is Nigerian government. You heard it from me.
All right, on today's edition is a human rights activist, politician, and matter of fact, one of the very face, I can call him the very face of activism in Nigeria right now, Omoyele Sowore, who is also the national chairman of the African Action Congress. All right, you have earned the reputation as Nigeria's most fearless activist. When did you first realize speaking truth to power was a calling for you?
Well, I think I realized very early in life when I was confronted with the brutality of Nigerian state when I was 10 years old. My village was invaded by the people you call Mopol now, or the Kill and Go police, because of an altercation between them and the youths on Christmas Eve in 1980. So the brutality, the trauma, and the degradation we followed that night as a family, as a community, forced me into a space where I said to myself, perhaps there might be an opportunity in the future. If I live to be old enough to speak to the power, I will confront these people. That was 10 years old. Of course, that is the internalization of that decision. The externalization was unraveled as I went to secondary school, where you had to confront teachers, principals, and then when I got to the university, I had to confront principalities. And this was made up of vice chancellors of the University of Lagos and eventually the military government. And ever since then, everybody in power, whether you're police, army, civil defense, governor, senator, anybody that's abused power, we try to speak truth to that power and confront without fear. I guess that's what I mean by fearlessness.
You don't fear for your life?
Oh, no, not anymore. I just had gotten to a point in life where I know that what is holding a lot of people back from what is right and just, the majority, is fear of death. And that death was going to come anyways, whether you're afraid or not. Yeah, it's a necessary end.
What are your thoughts with the spate of kidnappings of school children across the length and breadth of the country under President Bola Tinubu, especially considering the circumstances under which we are told they are released or they walked away, they escaped, and so on? How does it project this government?
Well, you must look at it from the point of view of the Nigerian state itself, and that's regardless of those who are in power now. But as of today, it has escalated to this point because over the years, you just had leaders who did nothing for the country to make the country have a safe, secure, and prosperous future. Even though we've made so much money from resources that we didn't put there, certainly very great resources. But of course, the current managers are the same set of people who promise you that they will turn the country into a Dorado, but they have turned into a Hobbesian state. You know what Thomas Holland's most important quote is. He said, "It has become a place where life is solitary, very poor, nasty, brutish, and short." That's where Nigeria is today, it's a Hobbesian state. And it was because the current president was one of the architects of the Nigeria that we have today. It didn't start today. He's been a senator. He was senator in 1992.
How do you mean by what Nigeria is today? He's an architect of it.
Because he was one of the people who even people thought they fought for democracy. Never really fought for democracy. They were fighting to get power. And when they didn't get power in 1993, they ran away. And what were they doing when they left the country? He pretended, alongside some others, to be fighting for democracy. But he was actually dealing in drugs, heroin.
And that's an allegation.
It's not an allegation. It's stated in a U.S. District Court official hearing that I was the first to obtain physically on the outskirts of Chicago, where it had been taken after the case was concluded in 1993. It had been taken to the archives. I purchased a copy of that for $76. I can't forget. So, and then when they came back into power, having engaged in all kinds of dealings with the military that was living. And it was Lagos State Governor for 8 solid years. What did they do in Lagos? They decided that they'll take whatever belongs to the people of Lagos and convert it to their own private accounts and enterprises. And that's how we came about a tax collection procedure by a company owned by Tinubu, known as Alphabet. And from there, one of the most vibrant economies in Africa, Lagos' 6th largest economy, was looted. And Lagos today, if you rent, does easily go underwater. If the money was spent, they made in Lagos and developing Lagos probably will compete favorably with Amsterdam, or even better. I'm just giving you the background so that you can understand why I said that. So when you now reward such a character with the presidency of Nigeria, what do you expect? And you look at the ones who work with Buhari, kept Buhari for a second term. And you know what Buhari did to this country. And you know what their political party is doing to the country. And you know what they are doing today, ruining democracy, engaging in unbelievable manipulation of the judiciary or the judicial process. They are engaging in some of the worst set of people that can run a country. Is in power today. It is difficult, I must say, to tell you who is the worst set of people to govern Nigeria, because I've never seen a good one, as to say, but successively, the worst is always the correct. So, and then you take away the right of Nigerians to freely elect their leaders by manipulating the National Electoral Commission, or the Independent National Electoral Commission. And for those of us who told you that INEC is a political party as opposed to being an electoral commission, you saw what they did. The man who just left less than 3 months ago has been offered an ambassadorship, effectively giving him immunity to answer for his crime or crimes in the 2023 election. So that is how I came about my conclusion that you shouldn't have expected anything better. Yes.
I will still return to the kidnap, but somehow this also aligns with why you seem to be having fresh charges against you, calling the IGP illegal and the president a criminal on social media. Do you regret those statements?
No.
Or do you stand by them?
I was offered the opportunity to recant before they wrote me a letter. They wrote Facebook a letter, wrote Twitter a letter. No, they wrote Twitter first. Twitter brought it to my attention that they want them to take down my position on Twitter. And I said, no, I don't want to. And then they wrote Facebook. And the DSS wrote me directly that they want me to apologize and take down my tweets or post. And I refused. So if I regret it, why would I refuse and opt to go for a criminal charge to deal with that? I'm going to be charged tomorrow for that offense at the Federal High Court officially, alongside Facebook and Twitter. But Twitter is not making any appearance. They refuse to enter an appearance because they know it's a sham. Facebook has entered appearance because Facebook has a way of dealing with all this government. It's all about money. So, and as I've always said, stated in the past, the social media companies have become your new colonial rulers. Yes, because they pretty much tell you what to say, what you can't say, where to, which angle of your body can be taken and uploaded. And they own everything you upload there. Most people don't read the agreements before they sign up. They own it. They sell your information freely as they want. And Facebook just had an agreement with the Nigerian government to settle out of court. And most Nigerians didn't ask, why did Facebook accept to pay $32 million to the Nigerian government to settle out of court? Because they found out that Facebook breached the privacy of Nigerians online by selling information of their users, over 40 million of them, without their permission. They can't do that in the US, they can't do that in Europe. But they can do that here because we're inferior to them because of the kind of leaders we have. If they were found to have committed the same offense in Europe or the US, you won't be talking about $32 million. You'll be talking about billions of dollars in restitution.
Let's go back to the spate of kidnappings.
Yes.
And the manner in which the people so kidnapped are released, giving room to all kinds of narratives and conspiracy theories. What's your take on it, and how does it?
So you have to understand that what is afflicting Nigeria today is the failure to protect the people of Nigeria. The security agencies have failed in their duties. And that brings me back to the reason why I call the IG illegal. You are illegal Inspector General of Police if you continue to remain in office while you are not a policeman. The primary law that governs policing, or who determines or defines a police officer, is the Police Act. And what the Police Act says that the person who is Inspector General of Police must be a policeman. So, but if you are retired, you cannot be called a policeman anymore. That is why you are not different from the guy who was caught in Lagos, a sergeant who had retired, but went back on the highway wearing it. It was the same IG that announced his arrest and prosecution. But you have retired since September of 2024, after having served the police for 35 years. Every policeman is only allowed to serve for 35 years. That law hasn't changed. So anybody who goes around wearing a police uniform after he's retired is acting illegally. So, but his alibi or excuse is that he was appointed by the president to that position. The president cannot carry out an illegality because he's president. He has to conform with the laws of the land. And it's been made very clear where an act of parliament it contradicts the constitution of the country, the grand norm. This constitution supersede. I must say now that I even don't believe in this 1999 constitution because it was the sons of praise of the Nigerian military when they were leaving power. It wasn't made by Nigerian people. So that in itself is one of our biggest problems. But that's my explanation. So all the security agencies just have no capacity, they've destroyed the capacity to work or do or deliver on their mandates because of corruption, incompetence, and collusion. We're seeing the police and army today failing, the DSS failing. We are not asked about the Nigerian Navy. Do you know that the job of the Nigerian Navy has been contracted out in this country to a private company? Do you know that? The Navy cannot operate in up to 35% of Nigeria waterways. The entire Niger Delta region, the Navy has no power whatsoever to intercept boats, ships, canoes leaving and entering Nigeria waterways or coming to land. It's only in Lagos that they have that capacity or right. In Niger Delta region, it's privatized. So you know what I mean now. That is why the presidential spokesperson came and told you that they know the kidnappers. They have their phone numbers. They have a Rolodex of kidnappers. They have Rolodex of bandits. And that's because they're engaging as a result of their own failure in what they call non-kinetic engagements, in which they fail to crush where people are found to have violated human rights and have killed unlawfully, which is only states and these agencies are allowed to kill unlawfully, hold somebody. These are crimes against humanity, by the way, but because they have been compromised too much, including in the recruitment process, where you recruit Boko Haram militants that you claim are rehabilitated. And let me shock you that the Nigerian government actually has a rehabilitation center for Boko Haram in Gombe State. And they spend more money on those rehabilitation than they spend on any Nigerian university, federal university. So they have set the grounds for what you are saying over time. And they're just playing on your intelligence as citizens by claiming that, oh, we are looking for kidnapped persons. The truth is that today, if someone is kidnapped and you go to the police will warn you not to go and make noise about the kidnapping. Because if you go and start making noise, the kidnappers will call you that the police has told them that you are becoming very stubborn and obstinate, and that they'll come and kidnap you. And they will do that without anybody being able to protect you. The kidnapper can write a letter, or a group of kidnappers, or can write a letter to a community that they are coming on so dates to kidnap whomever they find, and nobody can protect you. What does that tell you? It's failure of Nigerian state. Yes, Nigeria is a failed state.
Let me take you back to the IGP and your concept of illegality. The National Assembly also passed an amendment bill which the president has assented to, legalizing his appointments. Where does that leave us?
No, you cannot legalize an appointment of a person retroactively. It was when people started shouting that Akpabio, who is one of the worst Senate presidents in history, decided to pass a law or an amendment to a law, because they realized this before. Within a day, I think they did it in an hour or so. It was just done to try and cover up for the flaws I was saying, because I had started telling him not to even have his new tenure renewed before he'd retired, after what they did to all these young people during the end bad governance. So I was not even in the country when I started to say, your tenure is coming up. You better not try. Because I knew I heard chatters that they were trying to extend his tenure. So, but as there was a lawmaker, I think his name is Gadi or something, who said he's moved out that, yes. And he came out and said, no, what Sowore is saying is not true. Since I replied him, he has not spoken about it again. Because it comes back to this simple concept that you have to be a policeman, even for that amendment. You must go and amend the constitution to allow policemen to not be able to retire at 35 years of service or when they reach the age of. For instance, and to make this easy for you, if I'm taken before a federal high court judge tomorrow and I heard that the guy has retired and they brought him back, I'll tell him, my lord, you can't try me because you are not a judge. It's the same thing I tell him. you can't arrest me because you are not a policeman. When I was arrested over calling him, my constant problem with him, he said he wanted peace during my last arrest, not this last one. And arranged with Fakorede and another person that they should bring me to his office as a condition for my bail. And I told him it was a Friday. I said, I would prefer to stay here till Monday. We go to court. Reason? If I go and meet you in your office, I have now legalized your position as the IG. But if you want to meet me privately, we can meet on the street after you have resigned as IGP, but not as IG, not as. I was supposed to have I think it was a 5K or 10K run somewhere in Abuja. He was to come. The moment they told him Sowore is coming, he didn't come because he confided in somebody that he might go there and call me illegal IG and I might be forced to beat him up. I told the person, how is he sure he can beat me? But that's just on the lighter side. But that's how passionate I am about things that I stand strongly against.
You've also been in the forefront lately over the issue of Nnamdi Kanu.
Yes.
And very vocal at that. What was going through your mind or your reaction when Justice James Omotosho was reading that life imprisonment judgment on November 20th?
Nothing. You know why? Because as of November 5, I had explained in a long tweet on my page and on my social media handles exactly what was going to happen on November 20th. Two things were going to happen in November. They were actually supposed to have jailed Nnamdi Kanu on November 10th. But they realized at the last minute that it was Ken Saro-Wiwa's same day that they killed Ken Saro-Wiwa. Second, the sentence was supposed to be a death sentence. But because they could not get, the support they needed to carry it out, they decided to make it life. Omotosho, as of the time he went for a break to come and read the judgment, was still, what he had in his hand was a judgment for death sentence. If you see the passion with which he was reading the allegations against Nnamdi Kanu, one, the laborious and tedious way he was going on, he didn't write the judgment. You can tell. You can tell from his demeanor and his action that this was too much. A lot of mistakes. He couldn't mention his name, said everything properly. And secondly, when he went back, they have to have another meeting with him. They said, look, I don't think we can carry out the death sentence. And that was why they settled for life. And then they imprisoned him, they settled for life, and took him to Sokoto the next day. The fastest transfer of a prisoner. And it was to send a message to the people on whose behalf he was sentenced to life. Because nobody should deceive you. Nnamdi Kanu's offense has nothing to do with what they read as his charges. Some of those charges are dead. Some of them no longer, some of the laws under which they do not exist. Like the treason charge. You can't charge somebody for treason after 3 years of committing the offense. So they charge him almost 4 or 5 years after he committed the offense. Some of the charges restated had already been struck out. So it was just what they call trial and error. His offense is that he was asking for the breakup of the real estate called Nigeria. And the owners of Nigeria decided that, oh, you don't do that. That's what is that offense the Christians talk about that is unforgivable it's an offense against the Holy Spirit. This is an offense against the holy oil in Nigeria. That was the reason why Ken Saro-Wiwa was, when you touch that area, they don't waste time, the owners of Nigeria. Then you've touched their economic life and nav. They'll kill you. They kill you immediately.
Have you been able to visit him in Sokoto?
I haven't, but I've had people who have visited and we've been in touch. I've been in touch with him in general, but I've not visited Sokoto yet. But you see what I was telling you when I was planning the protest for Nnamdi Kanu, which I believe also might have led, which I believe was the reason they didn't pronounce death penalty, because that was a lot of attention, and that was why they were upset with me and sent me to Kuje prison for 4 days over that. When we were planning all that, I was calling on all these Eastern governors to speak out. Now they've realized that it's even more burden on them that Nnamdi Kanu is sentenced to death. That's why OT had to fly to Sokoto, maybe on a private jet, to go and visit Nnamdi Kanu. The judge is still going to go there and visit and apologize and confess. It happened to Fela. The judge who sentenced him, when Fela was there, he was sent to Maiduguri, Bama prison. The judge drove there from Lagos to go and apologize, wherever he was. Judge is still going to, Tinubu will still visit Nnamdi Kanu in prison. But we told them this was unnecessary. They could have saved themselves embarrassment on November 20th by just charging him of just releasing him unconditionally. Because you could tell, how do you accuse somebody of killing Gulak when you have him in TSS custody? How did he do it? No evidence. The only evidence they have is a radio transmitter and microphone. I was looking for an evidence of, he went to buy a ship of weapons and sent to Nigeria. No, not even a bullet. Just exercise book where he wrote his thoughts, and where a radio transmitter they claim he concealed and brought to Nigeria, and the microphone. That's all.
Why do you think his release is important to Nigeria?
Because Nigeria entered voluntarily into a disease in 1963. And to exit from it and heal itself, you must address the outcome of the Civil War. All of this thing you're saying is the outcome of the 1970 Civil War. And part of the reason why you say I'm active on this matter is not political. I didn't fight that in that war when I was active, and I don't want to participate in fighting when it is cold. They're still waging a cold war against the Igbo man in Nigeria. I know it. I don't need to go to school to know that. I don't need to have a PhD in philosophy to know that Nigeria has an Igbo problem. But it would be hypocritical on my side to fight and speak on behalf of Palestinians when Israel is shelling them, and forget to fight on behalf of our local Palestinians in the southeast when Nigerian government is shelling them. That would be hypocrisy on my part.
How do you respond to claims that activism is funded by some quarters to create a false sense of opposition?
I'm very happy that people can have opinions about me that they can put out there that makes them feel good. But if you want to do an activism that is creating a false sense of opposition, go and put your younger brother out there and then shoot him, and you finish burying him and you continue your activism. Be expelled from the university twice. Let your nose be broken. Let your mother have stroke because they detain you for a long period of time. Let your passport be seized and you can't see your children for 5 years and you have to be with your wife for. Be shot at, let them go after you everywhere you go. So, and then we can all come to a place where we say, we have created another activist who created a false sense of opposition. I'm not trying to be an opposition. See, what people should differentiate between activism, as you call it, and opposition is cyclical in Nigeria. People only oppose the government when they are out of government, when they don't have something to eat. They will oppose the government. I don't belong in that category. And then what happens to activists all over the world is that a narrative is framed to scandalize you, right? And some people will believe it. So when you get to a point as an activist at my level, you don't even respond to that, because then you get distracted responding to what they call hubris. At the end, the person who says, you want to create real opposition so that the ones that are false can pack and go home. So, but I understand that a person respects rights for people to have freedom of opinion. And I cannot tell you that anybody who says that has no right to say what he wants to say. Everybody should have a right to say that. That's the kind of country I'm fighting for, where you have a right to say what you want to say, and you are still free after you have said that.
Let's talk about revolution now.
Yes.
What exactly are you calling Nigerians to revolt against?
If there's anybody who's asking that question about this time, I have nothing to tell them. If Nigeria should be revolting against everything, I hate to say that, but I can't fail to tell you that every country that I've been to outside of Nigeria, and I've been to 31 countries beside Nigeria. And the question I ask myself is, what is wrong with us? And the question, the citizens of most countries that I've been to, the moment you introduce yourself to them, that you are a Nigerian, they ask you two questions. One of it is that, where's that footballer? They always have a favorite footballer. JJ Okocha is the most popular that I come across. And the second thing is, why are you guys not revolting against your leaders? You have such a great country, but you have foolish leaders, you have crazy leaders. I'm telling you what outsiders tell me. They tell me in South Africa, you go to Ghana, they'll tell you. In fact, some of the reason why Nigerians are hated abroad, apart from those who are accused of being too nice to their women and their women fall in love with them, because they say Nigerian men are very good in taking care of women. So there's that animosity I'm talking about. But the second reason most Africans hate Nigerians is that they love Nigeria to the point that they can't understand why Nigeria is not a great place. Yes. Because they love your football, they love your culture, they live off of your music, their life is dependent on your movies, their spirituality is controlled by your clerics. Right? And then they will have to wake up and hear that you don't have water, running water. You don't have electricity. They can't travel to your country to go and see. I don't know how many Africans, I'm not saying Europe, I don't know how many Africans are saying, I wish I can go to Nigeria. I hear so much about Nigeria. How is it? But they'll tell you, but they said, you can't go there. They'll kidnap you, So Nigeria, if you have a child born abroad, you can ask anybody in diaspora. The only way to get your child to behave properly is to say, I'm taking you to Nigeria. I said, at the place, what do you want me to do? I don't want to go to Nigeria. I'll do it. Which other country do you use to threaten your children like that? Your children offend you, like, I'm taking you to Nigeria. I said, no, please, daddy. please. I don't want to go to Nigeria. And they have never been before. It's just based on what they've heard from their classmates. But good news is that there's something that is not related to government that keeps them going. My son plays soccer and he's focused on Osimhen. He's like, Daddy, did you see what Osimhen played? I don't even watch soccer that much. But you can't talk to my son about politics. He doesn't want to hear it because that's the traumatic part of Nigeria that affects him directly. His father is constantly hounded for going, being a citizen of Nigeria. He's aware, but he has found a way to please himself with something Nigerian, which is soccer. Some have adopted Nigerians, kit makers, they've adopted movie makers, musicians. People talk about all these young, great musicians. They have fans all over the world. They're doing well. Nigeria has almost replaced the entire musical genre around the world. Afrobeat, or whatever Afro they call it, is popular everywhere, even in the Nordic region. You go to Norway, you go to Nigerian, Sweden, the concert is filled up. It doesn't matter if it's Burna Boy or Flavor or Davido or Wizkid. But who wants to come to Nigeria to do a concert? Probably not many.
The president has just sent 32 names, in addition to 3 other names he sent as ambassadorial nominees to the Senate for immediate confirmation. And there have been divergent opinions regarding composition of that list. What's your own reaction on the list?
You see, I have a problem with Nigerians. Sometimes we major too much on what should not bother us. Why is anybody upset that Tinubu appointed useless people as ambassador? You get my point? Because they're all in the same WhatsApp group. What are you upset with that Tinubu appointed Reno Omokre or Panika? Who do you want him to appoint?
Yakub Mahmoud.
Yakub Mahmoud. He's appointing people of his genre. He appointed a guy who helped him rig election. What do you expect? He appointed a guy who helps him with propaganda, telling lies. He appointed a guy who helps him do other things. That is where they pick from their group. So I don't understand the outrage. If it was the Pope that did that, then you can be worried that why did the Pope, appoint a prostitute to head a Catholic mission, right? We can debate that, but we're talking about Tinubu now. So why is everybody upset that Tinubu appointed his people? And who do you expect him to appoint? It has to be people of his own genre, his people of the same characteristics. Yes. It's the reason why I haven't said anything about it is because sometimes I even have to call myself to order when I get overly excited about people appointed. Why do you appoint this person? The question is, why don't you focus on the person who appointed these characters?
All right, your party has just nominated you or elected you as the national chairman of the AAC. Are you likely to allow another person to flag the presidential flag in 2027?
See, a political party has members. The members decide who is going to run in the party. That is why it is the political party that run in elections. Are you getting my point? Not the particular individual. So the political party appoints or elects or nominates a flag bearer to run in national elections. The political party is the one who makes the decision that you are talking about, not me.
But will it be fair for a political party to have the national chairman transmute to the national flag, the presidential flag bearer of the party?
That's exactly why and where I know you are going, is to make it sound like, the chairman of the party has a constitution that determines who can run even in his own internal election. I am glad that you said the party had an election. And the reason why anybody is concerned about AAC is because AAC is a great party, and I'm happy to hear that. If I ask you, who is the chairman of SDP, I'm sure you don't know.
I know two people.
Exactly. If I ask you who is the chairman of AA, you probably don't know. You probably know the chairman of APC, and I guarantee you don't know the chairman of PDP, because there's none.
There are two people claiming.
Exactly. So if a party in this time in Nigeria's life can organize itself so well that it can have a rancor-free election, no matter how small the party. There are only 18 political parties in Nigeria. Do you know that? There used to be 80 political parties. AAC was one of them. When it became 18, AAC is still one of them. And AAC doesn't have the kind of problem the party that you claim are major parties have.
Does it have anything to do with its size?
No, because there are parties that have smaller size that have bigger problems. For instance, the Labour Party is not as big as people think, because in 2019, I had more votes than the presidential candidate of the Labour Party. But so as to rest your concerns is that if you want to run as a candidate in AAC, as a presidential candidate, you better join now so that you can run. Nobody will stop you. But if you are not a member and you think you can bring money to come and buy the presidential slot of the party, too late, because the party is not for sale. But I can tell you that majority of the political parties exist to sell forms. We exist to sell ideas to Nigerian people.
Why is AAC you often refer to AAC as a revolutionary party. Why do you refer to that party as such?
Because it's a party that has an ideology that's socialist in nature and has a very radical transformative agenda that you and I refer to as revolutionary, in the sense that we have made a decision that we will change this country through the ballot, hopefully. And if they compromise the ballot, we'll change it by any other means necessary. It's not a threat. You know, I've been tried for treason before, and I've defended the same position. I was arrested and tried for treason for saying that I want a revolution in Nigeria. The day I was arrested, 5 million people searched the meaning of revolution. And by now, everybody's talking about the revolution, including the people that arrested me, minus the one who was the head of state then, who's late. Even the likes of Malami, they are all talking about revolution. They want revolution, you know. El-Rufai, they want revolution. Babashir, even Rotimi Amici, they are saying they want revolution.
How do you feel when you see them now talk about revolution? How do you feel?
I know they don't mean it, so I don't hold it against them. But I feel good that I have something that I pioneered that has been widely accepted, yes. And that was why it's different. It's a party that has stood on the same path and maintained the same traction over all these years, when other parties have gone left and right, and some have devolved, evolved, and dissolved. So, but you know, the reason why anybody will worry about it is because it's a futuristic party as far back as 2018. And now the world is like, oh, these guys, we've ignored them for so long. That's why you're hearing all these things. Oh, maybe, you know, they don't have a presidential slot, they won't be competitive. Because they want to come and buy. They're looking for where to buy parties. And they have seen that AAC will not be available for purchase. They know that. So what do? They create narratives as such. You know, since I came here, you've confronted me with different kind of narratives about me. A week ago, the narrative about me was that I was the one who helped Boko Haram to kill the Brigadier General. They wrote a whole narrative about it, that had Sahara reporters not reported that the guy was missing, they would have located him. That was narrative for last week. The week before, it was the fact that I wanted to stop the judiciary from concluding Nnamdi Kanu's trial. The week before is that the IG accused me of wanting to cause a mutiny within the police force because I was fighting for police welfare. So every week there's a narrative against me, and I'm happy about it because it means that we're doing something right by our people.
Do you see Tinubu winning 2027? And how do you plan, if you think otherwise, how do you plan to stop him? And are you likely to work with other like minds in other political parties?
You see, Tinubu is not going to win any election in this country because Tinubu is not built to win elections. Tinubu is built to rig elections. And if we leave Tinubu to his own devices, he will be selected, not elected in just like he was selected by Mahmoud in 2020. He will be selected again. And I can tell you, based on experience and intelligence, that Tinubu had already even populated INEC fully with his own people before the last INEC chairman was appointed. Most of the national leaders of the political, of INEC, national commissioners, were card-carrying members of APC. Because when he came, he has appointed a lot of national commissioners and electoral commissioners at the state level. They are mostly his people already. The last jigsaw that came into the puzzle was this professor from Kogi State at Mopiton, who was appointed, and everything is ready as far as INEC is concerned for Tinubu's inauguration. But the good news is that, and you've seen that everybody is also being forced to decamp to their party. But the good news is that the Nigerian people are not decamping to APC. And that's where we could tell you that we can make it happen. We can make Tinubu become history. And nobody else can do it better than I can, because I'm a veteran in this battle of fighting against these characters and defeating them.
You have been hounded, arrested multiple times for activism. How do you balance your personal safety with a commitment to exposing corruption?
Well, I think what I have done over time, over these years, is to diversify. If I was Nigeria, the Nigeria economy will be booming, because when I noticed that one stage needs to be elevated, I move from that stage, keep the other stage working, and I move to another sector, uh, economically speaking, or as the Christians like to say, you set up another ministry. So the ministry of driving out military rulers, I was part of it, and we succeeded. The ministry of fighting against corruption, I did from abroad through the establishment of Sahara Reporters as a weapon fashioned against corruption. But I haven't lived in America myself and worked as a Sahara Reporter. I knew that newspapers by themselves cannot change society. You can write everything you want. In fact, the more you write these scathing reports, the more society is desensitized to corruption. I've realized one thing now. If somebody is arrested for stealing 10 million naira, Nigerians are the ones who say, how can you arrest somebody for stealing 10 million naira? They are desensitized to small corruption. But all of these corruptions aggregates to big corruption. They want to hear that billions are no longer even strange anymore. The next person that will be arrested for stealing trillion is the person the Nigerians are looking forward to and say, Kai, this guy tried. It's called desensitization. And that's what media, or constant media barrage, telling you this is a thief, this is a thief. People get to the point, they start having their favorite thief. Yes. And that's why I left media to go and focus on capturing power. Because without good people running this country, even if you have the best judges, you can't stop corruption. America realized that a long time ago. They don't let you steal their money. They act proactively. America can elect a thief to be president of the country, knowing that he can't steal their money. But if the people want to vote for a thief, no problem. But the institutions will not allow the thief to. You saw what they did to Donald Trump. He submitted a list of people he wanted to punish, took them to court. The judges just threw out the case after 3 weeks. There's no judge in Nigeria that can throw out such a case. Otherwise, my case would have been thrown out over calling Tinubu a criminal. Any serious judge would have looked at it and said, look, what kind of rubbish is this? Even find the prosecutors. How dare you bring this kind of case before me? So he called the president a criminal. So what? And the judge will look at you and say, what if he proves it? What are you going to do? And I can prove that Tinubu is a criminal. You heard it from me. That is why, of all the people that are complaining that I call Tinubu a criminal, Tinubu is the only one who didn't complain. He didn't say what. He didn't even allow Aso Rock to issue a statement to say, I'm not a criminal. He didn't explain himself. Tinubu is a newspaper owner. He owns several TV stations. He owns several radio stations. Not once did he say by himself that Sowore lied. And don't tell me that Tinubu doesn't know Sowore. Of course he does. But he knows me enough to know that I'm not flippant to have said what is not correct about him.
All right, let's begin to wrap up this way. If you have the privilege, let me say the opportunity. Let me not say privilege, because to you it might not be considered a privilege. If you have the opportunity of sitting down with President Tinubu privately, what would you say to him?
I first will not sit down with him privately.
Why?
Waste of time. It is not one of the privileges I want to exercise. If I want to sit down with him privately, I would have done that a long time ago. Right? In any capacity. If I wanted it in private or in public, I would have done it. And I'm sure he will be happy to sit down with me. Because he knows that I'm one of the citizens of this country who, according to even their own internal records, has clean records and has contributed immensely to the democratic development of this country. And that I mean well. They say it amongst themselves that if there's a person that they know means well for Nigeria, Sowore, but we hate him because he talks too much and he's not afraid of anybody. He doesn't have a godfather. You know, they used to say something to me in Yoruba that Sowore is the only Yoruba god that doesn't have a place where you can worship him. Mm. And what they mean is he can't be bribed or bought. So there's no shrine where I can be worshipped. But the reason
attempts to
several, but I don't want to be worshipped either. So I close the shrine.
I said let's wrap up this way. The political parties, yes, especially the opposition political parties, is it a surprise that virtually all of them are in crisis, except probably for AAC?
It's not a surprise, and I'll explain in two ways. You see, technically, there are no political parties in Nigeria. You know, that is even an indictment on AAC itself. You understand? Because almost all the political parties are controlled by INEC. Are you getting me? And political parties are supposed to be completely independent of any kind of control. But political parties, as defined by the people who invented it, did not think about Nigeria when they were inventing political parties. They didn't know that someday a country called Nigeria, people called Nigerians, will have to be using that vehicle. Anything that got here, including the Bible, had to be manipulated to suit the agenda of the people who live in this country, or the Quran. You know, whatever they lay their hands upon, they go and look for the part that suits crime, you know, and sin. That's what they look for. And how they can justify it is that the political parties here are set up, and that's my second position, as special purpose vehicles for negotiation for personal interests. So if you ask, for instance, the APC to produce a membership register, do you know they don't have?
Sure.
They don't care. They don't. Because they don't have to. When we were asked to produce membership register in 2022, we were probably the only party that had a digital membership because we have people registering online. They confessed to us at INEC that APC could not provide membership because they don't have. So what they then did, they got INEC to use INEC voters register to help them create an APC register within INEC. So they took the INEC voter, what you and I register as voters. You can, if you come across an APC register, you might find my name there. I'm telling you, because it was not done by consent. It was just a transfer of existing data to a rogue party. Because they're still using longhand, even when the only documents you can find in APC is money sharing documentation. You collect this one, how much did you collect? You this one, how much did you give? Those are the documents you can't find them. They don't. Have you ever seen APC registering members? Never. For a party that's been around since 2013, you would imagine that you can register online. I don't even think APC has a website. I doubt it. So if you ask for APC register, you better go and search. If you are not a member, your name might be there. That's how APC got the register. So I'm explaining to you the rotor, but the other part is that who are the characters in these parties? They are gerrymanderers, you know. The persons Americans call carpetbaggers. Money, they are APC, at night they are PDP. So they export crisis to these parties. They are experts. Even the AAC you are talking about, the only reason we are still here is because we fought back. They took AAC over from us. Between 2019 and 2022, it was at the Court of Appeal that we got the party back. Do you know who did it? Wike. The moment he lost that election in Port Harcourt against our candidate, who was then adopted by APC, and he saw that he was losing, he needed the courts to restore his man to buy back to get back in power. He gave money to our party secretary, got a judge in Abuja to dissolve. They gave them money to go and dissolve. They claimed that they did a shady meeting, dissolved our ESCO, our original ESCO, and then got a judge to accept it. The judge who did it is now on suspension, Justice Ekwo. That's the weakest judge in this Abuja. So that's how they drove us out of our party. We went to Court of Appeal. It took us 3 years to get the party back. But the manner and way we fought back is the reason probably they looked at us and said, just leave these people alone. But that's not to say that they will leave us alone, I can guarantee you. But in this type of struggle, we are veterans. We will fight back, and fight back really bad, because even for what doesn't concern us, we fight for others.
Lastly.
Yes.
Lastly and last.
Hopefully, lastly.
What's their major worries about this country and the people?
It is not what bothers a lot of people. When people look at Nigeria, they think of, the majority of Nigerians think like, oh, Nigeria will break and all that. Nigeria has surpassed the stage where it could break. And I'm not supporting the unity of Nigeria as on paper. But it has failed so badly, it can't break. This might sound like awkward to you. It's like there's nothing to break anymore because everything is broken. The only thing that can happen to Nigeria is reconstruction. Anybody trying to break Nigeria, what is there to break? Is it the police you want to break? Or the army? Or the government? No, all of those components no longer exist. Nigeria is like a vehicle that they claim is traveling at 150% miles per hour, only for you to get there and discover it doesn't have tires. So everything is based on falsehood. But they can show you, they decorate it. Say, can't you see? Even the people that knew that it doesn't have tires will tell you that I just alighted from the vehicle just now. AC. But when you now get there, you remove the veil, you start shaking your head. And I'm sure that is why Donald Trump did not immediately realize that Nigeria is not a place you can just head to overnight. And I think upon discovering that, he returned back to Venezuela. Because there's nothing to break anymore here, And the part that is left to be broken, yes, is what the Americans have a terminology for it. But it's like a Chinaware, in a store where they sell it. They say if you walk into the place and you're admiring it and it breaks, you own it. So maybe somebody told Trump that if you go and break what is left, you own it. And it's like, wow.
But do you support that Trump attempt at...
No, I'm completely opposed to it.
Why?
Because Nigerians should learn to solve their own problems.
But we've not been able to solve it.
Trump is not been able to solve America's problem.
But they have a sense of direction. Do we have a direction?
No, America... Do you know of any place Trump intervened that is in order? Afghanistan is Taliban all back there. The guy who is president of Syria used to hold human head that they beheaded. Said they were driving him away. They brought him back. Have you been to Iraq? What happened there? They went and broke it. They refused to own it. Huh? Did you go to Libya? Those are the places they intervened. You almost also not forget history. The problem with us is that, because you asked about the people, and I'm going to say that as a concluding part, we are too religiously lazy that we believe that everything must come through the help of another person. There are people in this country who still want Jesus Christ to come and fix our electricity for us. But when they travel to Canada, they discover that God doesn't work in the electrical sector. It's done by human beings. You want them to come and construct your road. That's why a pastor will carry anointing oil and go and put on the road instead of telling the governor to go and fix the road. We're always looking for help. And it's not a sign of strength, it's a weakness that we must address. Nobody in the world is going to come and solve your problem. It's not possible. Even if Trump walks into this place today, he can only bomb a few places and he will leave. He's not going to stay. Or are you going to bring an American administration here? Do you want Nigeria to become an appendage or the 52nd state of the US? So they'll bring a governor here to come and fix your road. So there's a demand also on our intellect to think futuristically and think holistically and stand up as a people and say enough is enough. It was the decision China made that changed the life of China. After what is that word they fought about? There was this drug that they fought about, and they were defeated and humiliated, and their leaders decided from that day it would never happen. And since then, China became the most powerful country of the world. They never stopped. They never looked back. We must start that journey now, in which we say we are not looking back until we get to our final destination.
Leadership is critical.
That is why I'm sitting in front of you and saying there are leaders who can do it in this country. But the question is, are you ready for the leadership too that can take country to prosperity, peace, security, and progress? That's the question you should ask yourself. Because each time a solid person comes up as a leader in this country, it is the middle class, who use their own efforts to destroy those people by selling the kind of narratives you are talking about. I've run for election twice in this country. If I tell you what the media did to us, the better candidates, you know it. They will never interview you. They are more interested in the guys who doesn't come for the interview. Every day you see 2 PDP, 10 APC people speaking. Tinubu will never go to a TV. Tinubu never went to a TV station in the last election. If he did, it will be his own TV station, prearranged. But America has had democracy for how many, hundreds of years. Their president must go to a university campus for a debate, whether he likes it or not. It's not compulsory, but public opinion will force you to go there. They must debate 3 times. They must debate when they are still in the primary stage. They must debate after they have been adopted by their different political parties. But here, the media is complicit. They don't want to hear from the guy that has ideas. They are listening to the guy who doesn't speak, who has got nothing upstairs. So that also has to change. And I'm not blaming the media alone. I'm talking about the complacency of our populace as well. And it arose from what I was talking about, always looking for help from where help can never come. Trump, and I'm saying it again, Donald Trump is not coming to save you. He can't. He knows it himself. The person that can save Nigeria is the Nigerian army, the Nigeria police. That's why I'm interested in these institutions. Because if the police had not broken down irretrievably, what is the size of Nigeria that 250 million policemen cannot contain all this ragtag? But if you are driving between Lagos and Iroele or Benin, what do you see on the highway? Absolute criminals is what the people did. The roadblocks on those places are criminalities that when other people come from the country, other countries, they are scared when they get to a roadblock, when they see a timber road on the highway as if we're at war. Only war-torn countries have that. Only war-torn countries. You approach in 2025, you approach a police checkpoint, and you can't tell whether it's a police or a bandit because of the infrastructure used there. Why can't we have in 2025 a sign that says you're approaching police? In 1980s, when I first came to Lagos, every police checkpoint has about 100 meters of, even a mile before, you are approaching a police checkpoint. You start prepared. You see all these, lightings. And you see what they call the patrol, the highway patrol. Decent. If you don't stop, which they will likely stop you, there is a motorbike that will run after you. All those things have been converted to private security. And then your IG, this same guy, now followed a group of persons to go and meet a lawmaker in the US, a House of Representatives. Sir, please, we want to come and explain. what we are doing in our country to solve the problem. Is that not a disgrace? The guy they went to meet, that Congressman Chris Moore, if I tell you the guy doesn't know where Nigeria is located in the world map, would you believe him? They're young boys. Maybe he's like in his 30s. And then he looks up and somebody's knocking and says, "Oh, that's the Inspector General of Nigerian Police of 200 million." He's like, "Come in, idiots." Yeah, that's the Chief of General Staff. "Oh, come in, buffoon." So what's happening in your country? Sir, please, sir. We are trying. You have 250,000 policemen. Instead of you to take them into the bush, let's see how many the terrorists can kill now. Don't have a problem getting Sowore arrested. You should be able to arrest terrorists. And that's why, and I'll say lastly, I know these guys as scammers. They spent $10 million to go and bring Nnamdi Kanu from Kenya. But this is a sham trial. If you spend $50,000, you'll be able to get touchy. If you put $50,000 on the ground in Zamfara or Sokoto and say, "I want to get touchy," I'm sure there are enough hunters with that money who will go and fish him out. But they are not interested because they are partners in crime, in the business of terrorism. Because the number one organization in this country is Nigerian government. You heard it from me.